Charles, we're going live in like 10 seconds. All right, and we are live. I want to thank my special guest, Charles Johnson, for joining us on this next edition of Purpose-Driven Pivot. As you all know, folks that have been following this particular podcast and streaming interview series, it's something to where I'm bringing forward people with these amazing stories and how they pivoted on their journey, whether they been in that lane for a matter of months or years, or have been lifelong leaders like Charles has been, where he's been able to have candid conversations with people about, how a healthcare crisis has really been transforming not just the last few decades, but how he's looking to transform the future. I'm your host, Greg Clay, and I'm honored to have my good friend Charles Johnson joined us. And so, Charles, what's up, man? Look out.
What's going on, good brother Clay, man? It is an honor to be here on Sunday with you. It really is an honor, man. And first off, congratulations are in order, man. You got the glow, man. You got the fresh off the honeymoon. You know what I'm saying? Glow, brother. So congratulations to you and the missus, man. I'm so excited for y'all, man. And, you can tell a lot about a man by the type of woman he chooses, man. And you did well, brother, for real. You did well.
I appreciate it, man. Charles, man, you continue to inspire us on this journey, man, in so many different ways. Shout out to Ray, Mr. Shut Up and Train, man. We on our path to getting married, bumped into you on a regular basis. Yeah. I say pre-COVID on his fitness journey to look slim and trim for those wedding pictures, man. And so anytime, man, I see you at the gym, I'm like, I need to get my weight up, man. Charles got about 30, 40 more pounds than me on that thing.
Look, man, my secret is I'm picking up a 4 and a 5-year-old all day. That's how I stay moving, chasing them. That's how I got to stay in condition, man. But it really is truly an honor to be here with you, man. And, I know what you have going on, what you are building, and, using your platform, your voice to elevate so many people from other aspects of and other walks of life, man. It's so critical, man. So, you're a hometown hero, man. We love you. So, if you ask, say less, I'm there, winning whatever, man. So let's get into it. I know we got a lot to cover this afternoon.
Yeah, indeed. And we're going to try to keep it to an hour or less, man. And right. we can talk about so many different things as friends, Charles, man. One of the things that I even kind of referenced and mentioned during the promotion of this particular episode. And while I know we could start even the story from kind of fan view, us both being rattlers, and so we believe strongly in the HBCU culture.
Absolutely.
But more importantly, even just supporting folks on that journey. And I'll start the story where you shared with me the Ultralight Beam, man. We sat down after my mother had passed, and for me, it was trying to find these words and find these different emotions, man. I'll never forget. We were sitting in a commerce club, and we both were, we were both dressed to the nines. You know how it is when folks are trying to network to you, man. I think in the depth of our conversation, someone even approached the table trying to introduce themselves to us. And we were like, yo, this energy over here, you don't want none of this right now.
Yeah, back.
back. Yeah. But what you shared with me, man, around just the energy associated with the folks that are not here with us in the present, and that ultralight beam, man. I wanted you to talk a little bit more about that because one, Charles, and this is something that we hadn't talked about, man, I began to see it, not just last weekend when I got married and images that were taken.
Yeah.
When I saw it, man, when I proposed to Shani in Savannah. And I got to show you the photos, man. I really do.
Please.
Because every time I saw it, it goes back to exactly what you were talking about, that supernatural, that very high energy that shows kind of where you are on your journey and how people continue to show up that are not here with you in the present. So talk about the ultralight beam, man, a little bit, and give me that. We can go deep with it. We can go succinct with it.
No, let's get in, man. So I'll give a kind of a very, I'll I'll kind of set the stage and kind of give some foundational things. So for those of y'all who may not be familiar with my story and my journey, I was fortunate enough to meet a woman that absolutely changed my life, right? So we talk about my wife, Kira. We're talking about straight from the east side of Atlanta, Georgia Peach, born and raised, but really in her short time on this earth, really conquered the world. We're talking about a woman that spoke 5 languages fluently, was a pilot, was a skydiver, a race car, marathon runner, and really way out of my league, right? Let's be honest with you, right? I was, she was way out of my league, man, and it really challenged me, Greg, to be, like I say, she was far better than I deserved, and she challenged me to be far better than I ever thought I could be, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and we can kind of get into a little bit more depth of the story, but so, we welcomed our first son in 2014, and we always wanted back-to-back boys. So we welcomed our second son, Langston, in 2016. And the very short version of what happened is we walked in for Langston's birth, and we expected to be a routine scheduled C-section and at one of the best hospitals in the world. And we walked right into what we expected to be the happiest day of our lives and walked into a nightmare. Kira was allowed to bleed internally for more than 10 hours while we begged and pleaded for the hospital and the staff at Cedars-Sinai to help, and our cries fell on deaf ears. She unfortunately passed away shortly after childbirth. And so what I was sharing with Greg that afternoon, and he reached out and he's like, man, I just want to rap with you. And he just asked me, he was just saying that shortly after your mother passed, and what he was expressing to me was that I'm having trouble just finding this connection with her in her absence, right? And I'm just kind of just trying to hold on. And I was explaining to him the Ultralight Beam, the foundation of what that is. So the Ultralight Beam is a song by God Bless Him, man. That's what we can kind of get into Brother Kanye a little bit later.
Yeah. Let's do
it. What he's going through. So this is 2016, and he had just dropped The Life of Pablo, and there's a song on The Life of Pablo, for those of y'all who aren't familiar, that's called The Ultralight Beam. And it is an amazing, not just a song, but it's a piece of, for real, like it's a piece of art, right?
Sonically out of control, man.
Out of control. And so on this song is Kelly Price, Big Sean, Kirk Franklin, and Chance the Rapper. And it is this amazing piece of work and this amazing choir. And the essence of the song is it basically talks about trying to find your faith when it's lost, and that, in the absence of things that are unseen or untangible, there is something that he references, which is the ultralight beam, meaning that supernatural force that binds people and energy beyond the realms and planes of existence, right? And so I was explaining to Greg that song had just came out when we first moved to LA, and it was our favorite song. Like literally, it was our favorite song. We would be jamming to it on repeat, like singing it at the top of our lungs, on loop. It was just our joint because it was so hard. And I was sharing with Greg that shortly after, I think it was the second day after Kira passed, I found myself, I woke up. You ever had that feeling you wake up in a strange place? And I woke up in the hospital room at Cedars-Sinai, and I really thought, I didn't recognize my surroundings, and I was just kind of confused. It was the first time I slept in 3 days, and I only dozed off for probably about a period of about 2.5 hours. And the sun was beating me in my face, and it woke me up, and I woke up, and my first instincts, oh man, everything that I thought happened, my wife passed, all the things, it was a bad dream, wow. Right? Wow. And as I looked over to my right, I see an empty hospital bed. I was on a cot, and I looked right, to my immediate side of focus, and I saw my son sleeping in the bath. So I was like, oh, this is real. And so everything hit me. And I started my day on my knees. I tried to start my day on my knees in prayer the same way I do every day. And when I tried, I just couldn't get up. I just could not get up. I was on my knees, and the reality of my situation just began to sit in. And I was telling Greg that I was there. I was, head on the cot, just weeping uncontrollably. And I looked at my phone, was sitting right there. And I picked up the phone, I opened it, and I turned Ultralight Beam on. And song helped me get up off my knees. It helped me get up on my, and I just had it on repeat, and it became this work of art that had touched us in such a magnificent way. It began to serve me and speak to me in a completely different way. Now that I was going through what I was going through, and I was telling Greg, man, that, the things that we think about in the manner that we may expect for our loved ones who are now in the hereafter to communicate with us isn't necessarily that, but their energy is forever present. And if you just kind of take a step back, you will begin to see them show up and, walk, step by step with you in beautiful ways, man. And, like I said, it was just something, it was just on my heart to share it with them. And yeah, man, it just, even to this day, it's still, I still go back and listen to it and tap in all the time, man. It's just a beautiful work of art.
Charles, when you talk about the song Serving You, and how different things around you kind of serve your drive, your passion, your motivation. What are some of those other things, man, that folks might not, even in your immediate circle, know? Anything that comes to mind?
Well, so the thing that drives me, like the number one thing that drives me, honestly, Greg, is my kids, man.
Yeah. Man, you're an awesome father, bro. Like, listen, man, the energy that you put forward in fatherhood, man, it sings to my heart, man. It sings to so many folks that you've inspired hearts, man. And first off, thank you for sharing your story, right? And going in depth with it. But I say, man, just the image around fatherhood and what you push and present, man, it is just beautiful.
No, that's the ultimate compliment, man. And I'm tremendously blessed. I really am. And my kids are just my best work, man. They just and I'm so blessed that they're cool and they're smart and they're chill. And but even the real is, I always wanted to be a dad. Like, straight up, I always wanted to be a dad. I always, wanted to coach the team, like be obnoxiously involved. And even when we talk about how my desire to be a father actually shaped so many other choices. So for instance, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, not primarily because of the things that I thought that it could afford me in life, but because of the time I felt like it would allow me to do and be able to spend with my family, right? Sure. So even when we go back and I look at things that shaped my decisions at a young age, I remember playing T-ball, and I always remember the dads that would coach the team would be the ones that own their own business.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, Charles, where'd you play T-ball?
I played T-ball, interestingly enough. So I played Cascade, and I played it. You might be thinking of my brother. My brother Chris played at Adams Park.
Right. Yeah. Because he played with my younger cousin.
Yep.
But being East Point's greatest hit, which you are, I didn't know if you played for East Point coming up.
I was over at East Point. Sutton played at East Point, so I was always over there with Sutton and Kerry Willis. I was always over there with those cats, man. I was always over there.
But when you mentioned T-ball, man, I got immediate flashbacks. Just
man.
the baseball.
Yeah. So, man, those some memories, man. That's one thing. Side note, we'll kind of come back to that too, man. That's one thing I really want to work on. Is I want to do something over at those fields and all of a sudden. That's another project in the back of my mind someplace. We're gonna try and donate a scoreboard.
Totally, man. When you think about your coaching endeavors as a father, what type of advocate have you been on the sidelines?
So look, man, I live for this stuff, man. I really, really do. And I've been very fortunate that a couple things so much we talk about, but like one of the things I'm very fortunate. I'm very fortunate to have the friends that I have, but I'm also fortunate that some of my good friends got married before I did and made excellent choices. A lot of these brothers, personally, two of the main examples, Ramon, Shut Up and Train, and Xavier, right?
Shout out to Xavier.
They chose well.
Yeah. Now, I've got Zay on the show this month.
Good.
Matter of fact, he's 2 weeks from now.
Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to tune into that. But just tremendous brothers, and whose wives are amazing, and just watching their style. So I always been inspired by them, not only as friends, but as as fathers. But as far as my advocacy, so my coaching style, right, is particularly at the ages. So my boys are 4 and 5, right? And the biggest thing that you can do, my secret weapon, honestly, I'm telling you, G, is enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I mean, so I come out there and we are lit. 8 a.m. in the morning. I mean, we out there doing chants. We out there. And so what happens is when you coach in soccer and our team is so lit in warm-ups, other teams are distracted. They're not listening. They're over
you won the game before the game started.
Before they blow the first whistle. And then we steamroll them, right? We steamroll them, man. And you know, it's one of those things like sports are great, and I feel that sports are tremendously needed, particularly for young Black boys. But if my kids decide it's too, if they decide they want to be finger painters, it's my job to, you know, facilitate them and really just help cultivate that greatness. And I'll share this. One of the things that really shaped my mind frame and the way I view sports extracurriculars for kids is I remember growing up, and a good friend of the family's, I couldn't have been more than 9 at this time, Ray, but it's funny how things just seep into you, just stick with you. So we were there, and this particular friend of the family's brilliant brother, he went to Dartmouth, played football, and the question was presented to him, are you going to make your son play football?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Which is a big question nowadays, now that the research is. Mm-hmm.
And so this is so we got to keep in mind, this is about 25 years ago at this point. Wow. But his response to me was so profound, and at 9 years old, it stuck with me, and it shaped how I parent to this day. His response was, he said, you know what? If my son plays football and he's into it, that's great. And that would be awesome. He said, but if he doesn't, that's cool. He said, however, he has to have something that he does and he is required to do even when he feels like not doing it. Okay. That was his only requirement. He has to do something that he's committed to, that he is required to do even when he feels like not doing it.
I like that.
And he said, I don't care what it is. And he says, because, and his point was, because I have to go to work when I don't feel like going to work. So he has to do something that he keeps his, and I was like, dang. And I dug that. And that's the same thing. Like,
that's a good nugget. That's a good father. That's a good.
I don't care what it is, but there has to be something that you got to do and be committed to and stick with it. So that's kind of how I look at this stuff. You know, and that's how we kind of approach it, man.
And so I'm glad we're able to cover fatherhood early, man. And as the conversation naturally flows, coming back to, you know, some of those things that you pivot into when it comes to fatherhood, sharing, you know, your perspective on it is just invaluable when it comes to guys like me and folks that will watch this and are watching this as it relates to the fabric of your motivations, the things that keep you, you know, up at night and drive you, really.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful thing to share with us, Charles.
Sure.
Man, I wanted to in pivoting a little bit, I read something that you wrote, man, and it was the beautiful thing about love is that it has the ability to turn pain into power.
Yeah.
And, you know, your mantra, love always wins, which is a hashtag, which is something that, oh, look at it. Love always wins, baby. Always. Turning that energy, turning all of that into power. Charles, like I mentioned before, man, you have just been, I can't say an inspiration enough. You know, we'll probably say that 60, 70 times during this dialogue, but turning that into power is something that I wanted to dive deep on because you have been able to be very, very passionate about maternal health care.
Yeah.
You've been able to draw some practical lines in what we might call this season of change, some practical lines to your advocacy, Charles, that a lot of folks may not even be aware of. When it comes to policy, when it comes to your perspective on healthcare, the rumble and tumble of going up the Capitol Hill over and over and over again, as it relates to something that you're passionate about related to maternal health care, the relationships that you might have had to bite your tongue with what you need to say, and even some of your unlikely advocates and partnerships on policy, you know, and looking at your work in an advocacy space. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that journey when it comes to the season of change and how people are pivoting into policy and some of those practical lines. When you started your journey, when you said, I'm getting up and I'm making this a part of the thing that drives me, who are some of the people that you talked to first and second when you said, I want to really, really get into the trenches on this particular issue?
So when I first got into this, I talked to a couple of friends of the family, but I jumped into the advocacy piece just kind of naively. So, and I'll just kind of set some kind of foundational things for the conversation that people may not be aware of. So after Kira passed, I really truly thought that a woman walking into a hospital, in 2016, who has access to healthcare, who does everything right, who's healthy, who had done it all right, not walking out and surviving, I thought that it was a complete anomaly. I thought that this was something that doesn't happen in our country. I thought this was something that happens in the dark ages. And so what happened, Greg, is after the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, people begin to share their other stories, right? Of other women who had died in childbirth, and other women who were having horrific birthing experiences, what we call a near miss experience, right? And at first, I'm really truly thinking that this is just people's way of trying to connect with me, right? They're trying to, just trying to relate and help me grieve. And the more I'm hearing these stories, I'm like, something ain't right.
Yeah.
And that's when I began to do the research for myself. And I was just blown away when I learned that right here in America, more women are dying in childbirth than any place else on the face of the earth, any other civilized country in the world, right? 800 women a year. That's 2 women a day. 2 women today will die from childbirth. Now, let me hit you with some even more sobering statistics. The CDC has determined that 60% of these deaths are considered preventable. 60% of these women should be here, should be at first days of school, should be at graduation, should be dancing at weddings. But our healthcare system is failing. On top of that, when we start looking at the racial disparities, African American women are dying 5 times as often as their Caucasian counterparts, right?
5 times.
5 times as often. So for every Caucasian woman that's dying, 5 Black women are dying, right? So I was shocked that this was happening in our country. How is it in the richest country in the world that we are failing mothers? We are failing our most vulnerable. So on top of that, Greg, there are 50,000, count this, 50,000 women that are experiencing near misses, meaning they nearly died in childbirth but survived. 50,000 women annually. But what was even more horrifying was that nobody was talking about it. And I could not believe that, like, how is this not happening? So I made the choice that, because you know me for a while, I'm very private, right? I appreciate my anonymity. I'm not somebody I'm surprised. But I felt like I had to do something. I had to say something. I had to try and bring attention to this issue. So I made the decision to share Kira's story the Friday before Mother's Day in 2017. Not knowing what to expect, naively thinking, honestly, man, that I would share a story. If I was lucky, I might get a couple of interviews. So people might start to pay some attention, but I would really honestly go back to being a soccer dad in obscurity. Yeah. And God and Kira had very different plans for my life. And her story began to resonate, and it began to just, it just began to touch people's hearts and spirits. And next thing you know, it was Inside Edition. Next thing you know, CNN. Next thing you know, People Magazine is doing a spread, and it just continued to roll. And so as we begin to get the attention, we moved into policy. I'm thinking, okay, now we're beginning to raise awareness, but what can I do? Sure. Now we're beginning to be aware. How can I affect substantive change? And so I really jumped into the policy space very naively and bumped my head.
And Charles, that is when you say bump your head, I want to continue to let folks know, like, it's not a fine line between what you just mentioned and flipping to the advocacy space and saying, hey, I want to jump into this and it be a continued driving force.
Yeah.
And that is a heavy, not just on you, but also your family and people around you. That is a heavy, heavy decision.
Well, yeah. And particularly when you don't know what you're doing, like I did. I'm about to tell you how I bumped my head. I'm transparent, bro. So, I'm talking about I needed to get fitted for a helmet. So here's what I did. I jumped in and I was like, man, what can I do, man? We got to pass some laws, get some policies. So I started researching, trying to figure out who was, trying to write laws or change legislation. I found there was, interestingly enough, a white Republican woman out of Washington State named Carolyn Herrera Butler. And she had this bill that she had authored called the Preventing Maternal Deaths Act. And she was the only person in Congress that had any type of legislation around this issue. So
and that's HR 1318.
HR 1318. When I found out about this piece of legislation, Greg, there were 18 co-sponsors on it, okay? I'm about to go through this arc quickly about what happened. So I was like, yo, I met with them and I was like, yo, we got to do something with this. Let's figure out how we can work together. And they were like, and even her staff was like, oh, we're discouraged. Well, they're telling us that it's not going to go anywhere. We can't seem to get any support around this. Nobody's paying any attention. And everybody's telling us that things are too partisan and that women's health care is not, watch this, is not a priority, right? And I was like, okay, cool. Don't trip. Let me have it, right? So I started writing letters to everybody I could, making phone calls, flying up to DC, taking meetings, right? And so I was so naive to policy, and I'm setting this up to really answer your question about who gave me guidance and how I began to make progress. And so I was writing letters, and anybody that would respond and say they were willing to meet with me, I was flying to DC. I would set a date and I would pack my schedule. I would get on the first plane to DC and I would literally pack my schedule between 10 to 15 congressional meetings every day. And then I would get on the last flight out and I would fly back, right?
A true lobbyist.
Right.
I mean, that's the term.
Not knowing what I was doing, but I would just go up there and just pour out my heart and just come with my statistics. And I would just like, yo, this is, and I would, and people would leave and I would be like, oh, I really thought I was making progress. People were like, they were beginning to sign on and this, that, and third. But I didn't understand the way that the game was played. And I was up there meeting with people that were so brand new, they didn't even know where the bathroom was on Capitol Hill. They didn't, you know what I'm saying? Like they didn't, and they had no juice to help me do what I needed to do.
Yeah, and God bless them, but they were just a part of the journey, right?
Right. But they were like, hey, oh yeah, this sounds good. And they were, they were meeting, they're just not, yeah. Okay, that sounds great. We didn't know. And they weren't, I was not playing the game smart because I didn't even know the rules. So what happened here was a huge turning point for me. And I really have to give a big shout out to Congressman Bobby Rush. And so for those of you all who don't know Bobby Rush is a national treasure. He actually is a congressman. Congressman Rush is in his 80s, mid to late 80s. Has been in Congress forever. Former Black Panther, was actually one of Fred Hampton's lieutenants. And just a true warrior and a hero. And so what happened is I went and I met with Congressman Rush. And he said, Charles, he says, look, man, my heart goes out to you. He's like, but you've got to figure out how this game is played because you're meeting with a lot of people and these people can't do nothing for you. And he said, and he mapped out systematically my path to victory for this piece of legislation. So the critical part about Bobby Rush is he was on the subcommittee, the Senate Health Subcommittee, that I needed to get my bill through in order to get it to Congress for the full vote. And basically what he did is he brought his chief of staff he said, look, and he gave her instructions, said, look, I want you to help him. And so what he did is he mapped out for me everybody strategically on the committee. He's like, there's thousands of representatives. These are the ones you have to target, right? Then went the extra mile and had his chief of staff start helping me set up these meetings, right? Game changer. So now I went out here like this. I went out here with I'm out here trying to, I'm drinking from a fire hose and now I've got a laser. I'm systematically picking them up, bang, 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 bang. And I've got my checklist, and I'm literally, so now I know how many votes I got, I know how to do this. And so now I'm going DC, I'm going particularly, and I'm pressing the right buttons.
And when we talk about pivots, Charles, that is, man,
Game changer.
you know, and it speaks to the mentorship and sponsorship conversation, right? The mentorship may leave you still scratching your head on the plane, on the red eye back to Atlanta. But the sponsorship piece that says, hey, man, I'm not just going to give you this roadmap. I'm going to give you somebody with a hat on, that has, you know, Ranger on the front of it, that can kind of walk you through it. Now it's up to you. Right? Now it's up to you to continue to push and continue to grind, because I'm not going to do it for you. But that is just a powerful, powerful nugget.
Game changer.
Game changer.
Game changer for me, right? And this, my advocacy work in this bill would not have been possible had it not been for that meeting that afternoon. Because I would have continued to go out here trying to figure it out. And maybe at some point I would have gotten hip to it, but it was a complete game changer. And so Bobby Rush was a huge one for me. There are a couple of other folks from different professional societies that came and engaged, and you know, it was just really a divine presence, because you have to think. So we went from, and we talk about how people will change the goalposts, and how this thing went from a long shot to a no shot to, hey, we've got 18 co-sponsors, so we started getting traction, right? Then they
you testified in front of the bit.
So 18 co-sponsors like, no, look. We need you if we're going to take this seriously, we need you to get 150 co-sponsors before we take it seriously. All right. Thinking that I would never get that. Here's 180. Right. Oh, well, you know what? We need to get you up here to testify. All right, cool. Did that. I was fortunate enough to testify before Congress on behalf of the family.
You did a remarkable job, Charles.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
For those that are watching, go back and take a look at just the seriousness of, you know, not just getting that type of opportunity, but being able to provide with compassion, with clarity, and with some information that ties back to your personal journey. If you haven't seen it, go back and check it out. But please continue.
No, and so for me, the advocacy journey, man, has been a special one. You know, I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish. So in our fast forward, there's a lot of things we want to cover this afternoon. But so in 2018, I will share this, because in this political season, I think this is important.
Sure.
We talk about partisanship and how it can get funky. And I know that I do my best to relieve, when it pertains to this advocacy work, I am party neutral and issue focused, right? I don't care if you are from the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the Tea Party, the After Party. I don't care, right? Like, but this is a issue when we talk about women dying in childbirth that is uniquely bipartisan. And so that was one of the things we had to do, is we had to do shift, and we talk about these pivots, right? The thing where I think one of the problems they were having with making progress with this issue is that they were focused on the statistics, and they were allowing people to make this issue a quote unquote women's health issue, right? When what we did, and when we started sharing Kira's story and the stories of these other mothers, we made we were humanizing them. These women aren't just statistics, right? It's not, there's 800 mothers who were, you know, irreplaceable. Then it's not a women's health issue. It is truly a human rights issue. And that's when we begin to make progress. So in December of 2018, the day before President Trump shut the government down because he was mad about the money for his wall, he signed the Preventing Maternal Deaths Act into law. So, yeah.
That is, and it's a very succinct kind of path of what you presented, but just know, folks, that required so much of Charles and the people that supported him and the folks that got to know him through the process. That I think it just speaks to, when you talk about this being a human rights issue and not just something that's specific to, you know, we could talk about, you know, how it's impacting women of color and families of color. But even for the Republican congresswoman that was a part of it, you know, she had her own story in it as well. And so we think about success in policy,
Yes.
creating those bridges through the narrative, creating those bridges through the partisan politics. You were able to see success in that. And that policy has some teeth to it. I mean, the vertical of different commissions and committees that will go forth and do this work. I know that in your advocacy, you'll make sure that folks are accountable to it. But it has this long story even around people doing what now they say they're going to do too.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, this piece of policy was very important because we got the federal government to admit and, you know, take on the fact that this is even an issue. It's something that had been being swept under the rug. It was America's dirty little secret for far too long, but it's a first step, and it's only a first step. So we talk about policy, and it's a fast forward. And so once we got that done, I felt like we had to come back strong. So in March, just before COVID impacted everything, we were able to come back with what we were calling the Momnibus Act. And this is a comprehensive package of 9 different bills, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 9 different bills that we hit Congress with at the same time. So we worked with the Black Maternal Health Caucus, which is led by Representative Lauren Underwood out of Illinois, who's a Shiro. If you're not familiar with her, please get familiar. She is a young rock star. The Black Maternal Health Caucus, actually, interestingly enough, is the fastest growing bipartisan coalition on Capitol Hill. So we have a Black Maternal Health Caucus that has very red, very conservative members because they're taking this on as a what is now a human rights issue. And so we hit Capitol Hill with it. We introduced this bill. The vice presidential nominee, Kamala Harris, is the Senate sponsor for the bill. And within this package of 9 bills is the Kira Johnson Act, in honor of you know, our Earth Angel Kira. And that bill is going to do a lot of things that we're very proud of, including providing funding for Black women-led community health organizations. It's going to provide funding for doula and midwifery care. But very importantly, one of the things that I'm a huge proponent of when we talk about not just maternal health, Greg, but overall healthcare in this country is accountability, right? And dignified healthcare. And so one of the things that we're seeing is that patients are not having a voice. So what we're going to do with this bill, and this is pretty dope, I'm excited about it. So I'm going to do you know, those who are from Atlanta, I'm going to give y'all Eddie Long line. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. So
shout out to Eddie Long.
Shout out to Eddie Long. Shout out to Edward.
Shout out to Edward as well, my guy.
So what I'm saying is, watch this. So what we're going to do with this is the federal government is going to create grants for hospitals to have within these hospitals. There's going to be independent quality of care compliance offices within hospitals that are independent from the hospital. So what that looks like, if you are the Brown family and you have the issue of discrimination, of racism, sexism, ageism, you feel like you were neglected, you feel like you weren't being treated with dignity and respect, you have a place within that hospital to take your concern, okay?
That's big.
That's independent from that hospital, and the federal government will then publish those results.
That's big, Charles.
Okay, so that's
not just game changing, man. That when you talk about strapping a stick of dynamite to the system, and you know, talking through what systematic change, and not just the data and information that's going to come from that, but the confidence that families will now have, because you know, families of color, we look at healthcare, I mean, from every issue. I mean, it is something that as leaders we have to recognize in order to talk about change. Even with brothers going to the doctor and going to the hospital, you know, it's something that's different. But the confidence that gives families to come forward and say, "Hey, this is what I experienced," is extremely powerful, Charles.
Yeah, we're excited, man. Thank you so much, man. So, and that's a that's a big important step, excuse me, that I feel is necessary for. I mean, here's the deal. I'm unapologetic. I'm outspoken about the fact that I feel that our healthcare system needs to be rebuilt in a manner that is of service to people. A service to people. It puts patients before profits, and a big part of that is going to be accountability and transparency and dignified, respectful care for all people.
Yeah, yeah. And when you look at the number of people that that emotionally get attached to these types of efforts and initiatives and policies and things that you're driving. Charles, I think you've done a remarkable job when you referenced associations earlier. There are a lot of organizations that may or may not have been birthed out of this evolving conversation. Some been on the ground for decades, some being re-energized by the work that you're doing now. You've been able to build coalitions with mothers, with families, with folks of different racial makeups, and still unapologetically talk about this issue as it relates to people that look like you and I that are experiencing these systematic issues. Charles, talk a little bit about how you keep that together, man, outside of like, hey, I'm texting people every day. I'm saying, hey, it's relationship management and building relationships and keeping first things first can be a challenge sometimes.
It is, man. And so thank you so much for bringing that up, man. But that is something that I'm extremely proud of and that we've seen in this work over the past 4 years. I think that I think I might have a guest appearance by one of my people. Yeah, buddy. Never dull moment.
I wasn't ready to sit it out, and I wasn't at the trust area, but then I stayed out 2.9 on the
Okay, so I'll tell you what. After I get off, I'll get you another piece. But you know the rules. If you interrupt the call, you gotta say hi. All right, that's the rules. If you interrupt the call, you gotta say hi.
Hi.
What's going on?
This is Langston the Lion. This is my amazing 4-year-old. Say hi, everybody.
Hi.
All right.
Langston the Lion, that's a solid name, man. We're gonna keep you to that name. I love that.
All right. I'll see you later, buddy. Okay.
All right, good to see you, man.
All right, say bye.
Bye-bye.
That's the rule in the house. If you interrupt the call, you got to be on the call. So, so coalition building, right, Greg? Thank you for bringing that up. So, is that there were a lot of people, and I just want to give a shout out to, I have to take a pause and I have to just pay deference to the people that have been doing this work for decades and have been screaming at the top of their lungs to bring attention to this issue, and it's been falling on deaf ears. And they've been talking about this far before I even knew there was an issue, which is one of the reasons for the Shiro alert. We can get into that too. But there were a lot of people doing fantastic work, but what's happening is a lot of the work was in silos, right? There was people doing, there was near-miss survivors over here. There was Black Mamas Matter over here. There's ACOG, which is the OBGYN Society. I think that one of the things that I'm proudest of is this coalition of people coming together in different aspects and different quote unquote stakeholders in maternal health. The March of Dimes, right? Stacey Stewart, who's the president, who's a sister from Atlanta, from SWAT actually, who's the CEO of March of Dimes, and bringing everybody together.
You did an awesome, man. Y'all awesome content around that too.
Thank you. I adore
we'll talk about that.
And so what happened is to be able to get all these people who have a vested interest in improving maternal health on the same page. It's not easy because getting Black Mamas Matter and the OBGYNs to all agree, it's not always easy, but we were able to say like, look, these are the things that we can agree on, and these are the things that we can collectively focus our resources on. And it's been a blessing. And I'm extremely proud that this coalition of people who believe in this is continuing to grow, and we're getting support from the private sector. We're getting support from very unlikely people who are really saying that enough is enough and are really looking to see change. Because bottom line, though, Greg, is like there's a lot of things in our country that are funky, right? And there's a lot of things in our country, but this is something that we can fix, and this is something that shouldn't be partisan. This is an issue that all people should be affected by, and that's real too. And the thing about it is, you mentioned something too about always being your authentic self, because I talk about this, and I talk about being of service to all mothers and all families, but we cannot have a substantive conversation about maternal health in this country without first addressing the manner in which it is disproportionately affecting African American women. And I'm going to say that wherever I am.
No doubt.
I don't care how it makes you feel. And if it makes you feel uncomfortable, then that's a you problem, not a me problem. And I'll say it and I'll keep it simple for the slow people in the back. I have to tell you, I say, look, and they say, well, you didn't make it. Well, you're making it a racial issue. I didn't make it a racial issue. The statistics did, right?
Yeah, the truth did.
The truth did, right? And the other thing, the realest thing, let's keep it simple, is if African American women are dying 5 times more than white women, well, if we fix it for Black women, then we fix it for everybody.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Why not? You know what I'm saying? So why not start there? And
there are healthcare biases when you think of the way that a lot of different things are approached in our communities, whether it's viruses, chronic illnesses, or outpatient procedures. Hospital or healthcare facilities in specific sides of town or on specific sides of towns or neighborhoods is different than other sides of town.
yes.
And so there are all these biases that are in there, Charles, that I think we've got to, through work that you continue to promote and push, through everything that we continue to talk about, to keep, again, first things first. It just has to be referenced and mentioned because there's some truth in it, because it is disproportionately impacting people that look like you and I.
Yeah, it is. And so, and I talked about this a little bit in a conversation with Dr. Joy Career-Perry, and because I wanted to figure out the best way to frame it. And I think it was important to have a doctor's perspective. But there was a meme circulating online for the past few weeks, and it essentially said that doctors are doing the same thing to Black women that cops are doing to Black men. Mm-hmm. And it's been a controversial statement, but the reality is the reality of the situation is what the outcomes that we're seeing in maternal health and the outcomes that we're seeing with police violence against unarmed Black men are rooted in the same type of systematic oppression and discrimination, right? Systems that were not built for us, that were built to oppress us and control us, and have never been reformed to be inclusive, are producing similar outcomes.
Let me ask you something, Charles. Is a part of some of the conversations that you've had, and I'll make it hyper local because being in the Atlanta metro area, it's different professionally than a lot of other urban metros. Now we've got our issues, please believe that. But when you think of a network of like OBGYNs that can be readily available, or this clearinghouse of information related to pre, during, post maternal health care. Is that part of the conversation at all right now? I'm building that type of framework out.
So, meaning as far as like a kind of like
if I'm planning, my family, and I from the information standpoint, say, all right, I need to pick an OBGYN, who are, top 10, top 15, top 20 in the metro area, and that was just something I just was thinking about as you kind of spoke to it.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So there's a couple of ways that's coming about. There are a couple of people that are doing wonderful things utilizing tech to help to address bias. So on one hand, there's actually a wonderful woman that's developing an app called Earth, and essentially think about it as a platform like Yelp, but for maternal health care, right? So for to be able to receive and quantify and aggregate data on people's experience with obstetrical care, right? And to be able to quantify these scores. And also the thing about having a platform like this that utilizes data, it's a great way to have transparency and accountability, right? So so another thing that we did too, kind of outside of that, Greg, is we were able to do, I'm sorry, 1 second.
As you can see, Charles is full-time daddy. I love it.
Full-time dad, full-time advocate, right? So, so we talk about being able to use data for accountability. One of the things we're really proud of is we were actually able to partner with Yelp to get Yelp to include critical birthing data for every hospital in the state of California. So now when you go to Yelp in California, you can see right there on the hospital's page, their C-section rate, their episiotomy rate, all this critical birthing data that you have to dig for, right?
That's a term I never even, and I'm attempting to become part of the Informed, but I hadn't heard of that term, the critical birthing data, Charles.
Birthing data, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, man. And so, you know, our hope is that by utilizing data and customer experience the same way that having a 5-star rating on Uber helps keep your drivers in integrity up or their performance. We're hoping to use similar but much more profound and expansive use of data to hold providers accountable in healthcare. So that's what this app is going to do.
And the fact of the matter, Charles, it is the way that we are shaping behaviors right now.
Exactly.
Technology has been creating access to information that has been shaping behaviors, and that's not slowing down.
Yep.
So the things that matter the most to us, it's awesome to hear that, and that's something that you're working in tandem with people on, along with everything else that you're doing, Charles, because it really, really makes a difference for people like me, and a lot of our peers that are thinking of continuing to start families and give advice, and you're always trying to find information on the best decision that you need to make, especially as it relates to your most prized assets in your family.
Exactly. Definitely.
So Charles, man, you're using your platform just like I am, for folks that have been following what we've been doing with Purpose Driven Pivot. We started this journey from an event this past summer, and to continue that dialogue into next year, we went vertical with these conversations to talk about how folks have pivoted within their purpose, to draw inspiration to whether it's an issue that you're dealing with or working with, or similar folks in not just our network or in Atlanta, but across the country and worldwide. Charles, you're using your platform through Shiro Alert to highlight these stories and phenomenal people, as you mentioned, that have been doing this work and are just trying to keep people inspired and motivated, especially the win that's needed for the sales for what you're doing policy-wise that you just mentioned with everything that you want to do on Capitol Hill. Talk a little bit about Shiro Alert, man, and all the energy, man. Listen, brother, you got this talent, man, this anointing, just with connecting with people, man. It's what you're doing is different than what I've seen other folks do with the same exact platform, man. Tell us about it, man.
So, for me, I think first and foremost, man, I made me emotional thinking about it. I've just been even though this journey has been so hard, man, the way that Kira's story has resonated with people, the way that her energy has been the catalyst for what is now a maternal health revolution is something far beyond what I could have ever imagined when I started this work. And that being said, I get a lot of kudos and a lot of praise for what has been done, and I'm grateful for it, right? But for me, and I tend to find myself in Kira's story at the center of a lot of these conversations nationally. And so for me, it's important, even though we may be at the center of these conversations, it's important that this work is never centered around me, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I hope that didn't go over anybody's head, but it's important that this work is not centered around me. It's important that this work is centered around the women, the people, but the women who have been on the front lines fighting this fight far before I even knew that this was an issue, right? And so for me, I have been blessed with a platform. I've been blessed with the opportunity to share these stories. And so for me, it's important twofold that we amplify the voices of women, particularly Black women who are on the front lines. And also, I feel like particularly I am constantly bombarding people, Greg, with just heartbreaking news with the losses of mothers. I feel like I'm bombarding them with statistics that are just you know, crushing. And one of the things that is so hard for me to hear a lot is that women reach out and they're like, I heard your story, I heard what you said, and I am scared to have a baby, or I'm scared to have another baby. And that breaks my heart, because that's not what I want. I want people to be informed and empowered. I don't want them to ever, I want them to look forward to having birth. And I want to just, it's my job to make this country a better, safer place. So the motivation behind starting Shiro Alert was to amplify the voices of these women, but also share the good news, right? About what is happening, about the people who are making progress. And though we hear about these heartbreaking stories, understand that we will win this fight, right? And there is so much to be hopeful for. Even though we are having loss, even though we are losing mothers, and we're going to continue to lose mothers this year, that there are people who are fighting, right, to make it safer and better. And then if we can, I want you to hear from them about what you can do to protect, to be informed and protected, and to make sure that you have all the information necessary, because it's out there. We just have to be able to circulate it. So that's why I've done this series called Shiro Alert. I try and do it every Wednesday evening, and I feature a different Shiro, like these women who just inspire me. A lot of them have become kind of colleagues, but now they've been allies and really just close personal friends in this work. And so, you know, please.
And it's every Wednesday? Every
Wednesday. We try and do it at 6:30. And Greg, I appreciate the love. I have no idea what I'm doing, man. I just hop on there and just try and just talk to people about their experience and just have them share with me. And like I had Stacey Stewart, who is CEO of Marshall Dimes, Shiro to the fullest. Shouts out to Stacey. I had Dr. Joy Perry, who's one of my first guests, who is just, I mean, just the foremost expert when it comes to all things disparities in maternal health care. She's just a brilliant sister. And most recently, I had Latham Thomas, who is an amazing doula and just an amazing soul, and just informing people. And like, it was just amazing conversation. So you never know what you'll get. We talk personal stuff. We talk, you know, politics. We talk a lot of history. But it's been beautiful, man. I just continue to just hope to continue to bring it forth for folks.
Well, I'll tell you this, man. I'm inspired by you continue to use your platform in different and creative and innovative ways to stay connected, not just to the narrative, but to continue to build a narrative. You know, on this particular issue, there's so many pages that haven't been written to be written. And you're one of the folks that are boldly picking up the pen and doing some writing. And while I receive, you know, you saying that you have no idea what you're doing, we both subscribe to the same thing. And we know that our God up high knows exactly what's going on. And so while we're vessels in what we do, we just kind of bump around and get to it. We know that our steps are ordered, my brother.
Straight up.
Straight up.
Straight up. It's like I didn't know what I was doing when I did policy. You know what I'm saying? Like I had no idea. But like I said, man, you just, you know, just when you've got divine guidance, man, and it's just, you know, it's all gonna work out. And that's one thing that I'm so clear. We don't necessarily always understand the how, but just we were very clear about the why, right? It drives us. And the how just always takes care of itself.
Indeed. Well, Charles, man, I am, man, I'm humbled and grateful for your time today. In full-time fatherhood, man, carving out an hour to chop it up with me. What's going on? There he is. What's up, superstar? What you want to say? What you want to say to the people? You say we'll figure it out.
No.
You came in here because you wanted a snack. All right, I'll get you a snack in a minute.
Indeed. Charles, we're going to let you get back to the grind, man. Like I mentioned, man. We continue to be inspired by your work, your journey, and I appreciate you being so transparent about those things that have motivated you and how love always wins, man. We, in looking at your story, man, and your love for Kira and how you keep her legacy pushing forward, you know, it's something that we all can learn from when it comes to turning the things that hurt us, right, into this power and staying committed and obeyed to what God has for us and our families. And so I'm proud to call you friend, man. You know, I'm looking forward to your continued journey And for the folks that have been able to check us out today, I see we got a lot of good folks that have tuned in. Shout out to the FAMU Network, shout out to the Atlanta Network, folks that have showed love. And I'll mention when it comes to even my next episode, and this wasn't intentional, you got Melissa's painting right behind you.
Yo,
One
look,
of the early Johns.
yeah, so I gotta talk this. You know, we plug our
Yeah.
So one first, this was intentional. The FAMU Orange limited edition Love All Wins, right? We always dropping the subliminals and the intentionals consistently, man. So I love you to my family. Thank you for all your support, man. So as Greg was mentioned, so behind me, this truly is one of my prized possessions, and this is a painting done by next week's guest, right? Greg?
Yeah, Melissa will be on next week.
Mitchell, who is my sister friend. So this is a painting that Melissa, I'm seeing if y'all can see it. And this painting actually, Melissa did the night that she found out that Kira passed, man. And she gave it to me to see, like, there's this big heart with these wings. And of course, there's Kira, there's a heart, Charles, and then one for each of the boys, Charles and Langston. And so Melissa is just an amazing, so proud of her and what she's done. I'm gonna keep it funky with y'all. If you're not familiar, you all are about to be graced by the modern day Basquiat. I said it. Melissa Mitchell is the new Basquiat.
Let's go.
Straight up. Straight up. And this sister has just, I mean, you talk about walking in your purpose. And every time I look on social media, I see something else amazing that she is doing, another collaboration, other breakthrough, and her energy is just so amazing. And she comes from an amazing family of very spiritually grounded folks and entrepreneurial, and the way that she has combined her life experience with her talents will blow your mind. So make sure that you are tuned in. Melissa, wherever you're at, I love you, and just thank you for what this means. But this literally is in our dining room, and it was for a while actually hung over Langston's crib when he was a newborn, man. So it's very, very special to us.
Beautiful. Man, Charles, I really, really appreciate you, man. And there's so many different things that we got to come back and talk about.
Hit me, man. I'll be back.
And as you continue on the journey, as we all continue on our journey, you know, just for those folks that are looking for inspiration and to stay motivated, you can continue to stay connected with Charles' story, Kira's story, and the work that he's continuing to do in the advocacy space. I know the website is formoms.com. That's the number 4, KIRA MOMS. For Kira, then there's a 4 moms, MOMS.com.
Yep.
And that's the Instagram handle.
That's
so
it.
Be sure to follow them on social media.
Also for me, the number 4 KIRA, the number 4 MOMS. Check us out, man. We're just always just trying to keep people informed, and you can always keep up with the shenanigans with me and these turkeys, man. I always got my boys always doing something, man, keeping it lit.
Indeed. Hey, Charles, I know I'll see you soon, man. You know, it's COVID-19 and all this stuff kind of goes through and goes over. All right, guys, we'll see y'all later. You know, I know I'll bump into you, not in the gym, and somewhere else. But stay strong, man. And like you always say, my brother, love always wins.
Love always wins. Thank you so much, everybody. Greg, I love you so much, man. Give my best to the missus.
Will do, sir. Love you too, brother.
Anytime, anywhere, man.
Indeed. All right, y'all have an awesome evening, and thank y'all so much for tuning in.
I got some knuckle sandwiches for dinner. All right, man. Peace and love.
All right, salute, my brother.
Right.
Later.